It is 4 o'clock. I'm going to get the second portion of our monthly meeting started. I want to just start off by welcoming all of our advisory council members, as well as general members and anyone who is visiting us and joining us on this meeting today. I'd like to get us started with a land acknowledgement. A land acknowledgement is a formal statement recognizing the indigenous people of a place. It is a public gesture, an appreciation for the past and present indigenous stewardship of the lands that we now occupy. The Anchorage Coalition to End Homelessness and the HPRS Advisory Council would like to acknowledge that we gather today on the traditional lands of the Dena'ina Athabascans. For thousands of years, the Dena'ina have been and continue to be the stewards of this land. It is with gratefulness and respect that we recognize the contributions, innovations, and contemporary perspectives of the Upper Cook Inlet Dena'ina. I'd like to open it up to anyone who has a mission moment they'd like to share. Well, if no one has anything to share, I just wanted to chime in with, I guess, a little bit of a current mission moment / future mission moment. I had the utmost privilege 2 weeks ago to participate in a lease up, inviting a young woman who had been homeless for almost 2 years into her apartment, and it really reminded me why we do this work and why we put in the hours, and that's to make sure that everybody has a home. And then just to call attention to and really cheer on all of our providers that are doing this work every day, and we'll be absolutely putting in the hours and the work over the next few months as we work to get everybody into a home. I'm going to give a brief update on the work that's being done by the HPRS and the committees of the Advisory Council. The Data Committee has been continuing their work around data access and outcomes, specifically around rapid rehousing programs, and are currently doing some research into some of the projects that have been gathering some of this data and pulling all of that together to make some decisions about outcomes and things that we can be looking at going forward. The Community Prioritization Committee is looking forward to getting back to their work on Anchored Home. They have a new staff lead, and am hoping that the conversation that we're about to have later on in this meeting around the facilitated process and the mass care transition will help them in that work to develop the next stage of Anchored Home and bring that forward to everyone for review. The Compliance Committee and Coordinated Entry Committee did some work together over this last month to finish up doing the edits and the reviews to the written standards, which are a requirement by HUD for the continuum of care to have these. And looking forward to working with HUD and the TA that they're able to provide to help set that focus going forward. If I missed anything, anyone, feel free to jump in. All right, next I'm going to hand it off to Meg and Celia with the ACH staff to give their report.
Hi, everyone. It's good to see you all again. Some of you just a second ago, but others, it's been a little while. So I wanted to start with quick government update. So as many of you know, the coalition and our Balance of State COC partner are working a proposal through the legislature to start an Alaska Housing Trust. The idea being that using one-time funds or this opportunity where funding is more plentiful at the state level to spin off money in the long term. We all know that bringing on new housing projects is really challenging. There's the challenges with the capital stack, but there's even bigger challenges with the operations stack. And we have a housing crisis statewide. So we've been working to socialize the idea. We've got commitment by the Community Foundation that the fund could be in their shop, and then also some seed money. So it's a real thing. We're hoping the legislature can seed it with tens of millions of dollars, but we realize we're competing interest against many. So more soon on that, but really looking at what other states have done and what sustainable tools they have that we haven't deployed. And Alaska is one of 3 states without a statewide housing trust. So I think we're overdue. Facilitation updates. I'm going to make those facilitation / HUD technical assistance updates. So recently the coalition as the COC requested HUD technical assistance to ensure that we were deploying all HUD related resources to support the facilitation or the mass care exit planks. In response to that request, we were granted technical assistance, but we were granted disaster technical assistance. So specific technical assistance to respond to the COVID-19 catastrophic event. We are at the tail end of that event in terms of an emergency response. So HUD has come in to help us unwind from mass care. So unwinding from mass care, of course, means the closure of those non-congregate and congregate facilities. As many of you know, the coalition had been trying to implement that facilitation plan. It was going, and we have some successes, like the Sockeye Inn is moving forward as one of those planks to where it will be operational, hopefully June 1. But in terms of trying to house individuals, we were a bit stymied. Our numbers are not as big as we would like them to be. So HUD came and was on the ground last week. Gentleman named David is our technical assistance lead. He was here back in 2020 doing similar technical assistance around a COVID outbreak in a shelter situation. So he's familiar with the landscape, he's familiar with the players. So at this point, the goal is to house 10 people per day from April 1st to the end of June. Is a big goal, but one that the coalition is fully committed to. And David's been to facilitation, so he's met the mayor, he's met with folks from the administration, the assembly, philanthropy, went to the Homelessness Leadership Council. He's been in our office talking primarily with Taria and Celia about operationalizing the effort. And there is a request for an all COC meeting. So all homeless prevention response service providers to come together this coming Monday. We will put the doodle poll for availability if that applies to your organization. So you can respond with any kind of availability you may have. HUD will be there. They will talk about what technical assistance is going to look like on the ground in Anchorage, how providers can partner, how we can all work towards this housing goal. The real benefit of this technical assistance is a couple fold. First, it's refocusing the efforts on housing. Housing is hard right now. The vacancy rates are low, but they have resources to bring and expertise to bring to bear. So great. Let's get back into that housing first posture and really try to house people from mass care instead of moving them from one shelter situation to another. Second, we're at the coalition committed to operationalizing what in this technical assistance really works for the HPRS to make it as effective of a response system as possible. And 3, we are hoping this will give us the opportunity to reset without mass care in the middle. Mass care came in, it did this thing, but it's very much not a part of our homeless prevention response system. So as we look to normalize operations post-COVID, it's great to have this assistance at the table. They do bring some expertise to the table for the municipality around FEMA reimbursement, which I think is good. That might help take some of the concern away about the finances at the municipal level. So I would sum it up in saying that it's really intense, but I think it's an overall net positive. The coalition is fully committed. If you have any questions along the way, or if HUD reaches out, I'm here and available, as is our team, to really catalyze this opportunity. And we really hope to see as many people out of mass care housed as possible. So that brings me to the hard facilitation updates, which are the closure of non-congregate sites that is coming up. So the sockeye will close at the end of March. Full housing press is underway. We're not terribly concerned. And that's to give the new owners the opportunity to go in, make some changes for the new operator, Catholic Social Services, to stand up the complex care operation by June 1. Additionally, the guest house is slated to close on 3/31. Quarantine and isolation opportunities will be diverted over to the aviator. Learned that there are still 23 families in non-congregate, or 23 rooms in non-congregate sheltering at the guest house. So going to work closely there with Beans Cafe to make sure people either have a place to go, or that we can create an interim plan for that space. That space isn't going offline, it's just going offline for purposes of mass care. Similarly, the Alex Hotel is slated to go offline for mass care. It does not mean it couldn't be stood up in another form or fashion. So the coalition is working very diligently to stand up that as a transitional housing opportunity for 30 days. So we have a little bit more lead time to unwind and place people who are in that particular facility. More on that likely next week. We just learned of these firm closure dates yesterday. So spend a day kind of collecting our thoughts and exploring where we can find funding and what the opportunities are. And then we're moving fully into action mode to try to deploy these interim uses of these spaces by Monday or Tuesday. And I know that's not a lot of lead time, but we're moving as fast as we can. And then hard closure date for the Aviator and the Sullivan of June 30, which isn't surprising, but now it's a hard close date. So we're really working against those deadlines to move through. We did recently hire another transition coordinator to specifically focus on those in mass care, in addition to the capacity we already have. And we're fully geared up to move through this time to create as many successful opportunities as possible and support all of our partners, and hopefully get great partnership and support as we work through this time. I think that is the main updates. We did, oh, sorry, I want to welcome, she's on the meeting with us today. Julie Frizzell is our new senior grants manager at the coalition. We're really excited to have her on board as well. So the coalition continues to be fluid and dynamic and rolling with it to carry out the mission. So happy to take any questions if that's okay with the chair, or answer them in the chat. And that doodle poll is in the chat if that's something, a meeting that you think you would like to attend and you want to have any feedback on when we should hold it, please fill it out. Thanks.
Thank you, Meg. I'm not seeing any questions or hearing anyone chime in. So if you want to just move right into your other presentation, maybe anyone who has questions can have it at the end as well.
Sure. So the facilitated process at this point, so I'm going to dive in there more specifically. So the facilitated process had the 5 planks. This is just kind of a reminder and a refresher. I don't know that everyone lives in it quite as often as I do. So one of the planks was the complex care facility. And so that's the SOC-IN. We hit some real milestones on that. The SOC-IN will close and change ownership next week. It'll be held by a nonprofit, Ship Creek Community Assets 2. Some familiar folks we know who are partners are the board of that nonprofit, and the provider is Catholic Social Services. The assembly several meetings ago, but this past month, passed an alcohol tax appropriation to fund portion of that program. Their operating is a combination of municipal dollars, some HUD dollars, as well as mental health trust and philanthropy. It is quite the public-private partnership, both on the capital and operating side. So more as we work on in supporting Catholic Social Services on their referral process for that particular program. And so we'll be providing updates. I'm hoping we can get a really comprehensive update no later than May, so you're all aware of what's going to happen when the doors open. On the Navigation Center, the Assembly approved a $800,000 design contract for the Navigation Center, and the site has changed slightly. It was the old evidence lot. There is a lot to the west of that sits between the evidence lot and the old police headquarters. There's a middle lot. They are proposing to put it there at the size of approximately 25,000 square feet as determined, as it's designed. They also put out their RFP for a general construction manager. That has been taken to completion, but it is not out in the public as to who they're proposing to award that contract to, or how much that contract may be. And then there was also a contract, I believe, on Tuesday night to engage with Dowell about any wetlands permitting that maybe needs to be done for that site. So that's all been on the building and capital side for that project. There's not yet been any specific convening around the operational side of that project. The target date is still June 30, as far as anyone's been told that that facility would be open. On the workforce PSH project, a hotel conversion, a building has been identified, a purchase sale agreement has been submitted. Hopefully it will be accepted. If it is accepted, we will move quickly to convert that into single room occupancy opportunities for folks by June 1. That's the target date. That's pressing it a little bit tight because a closing date less than 90 days away is really asking for something, but really wanting to get in front of the end of June so that we've got some lead time. Also hoping to be able to find the opportunity to use that facility on the interim basis as transitional housing, and then folks could lease up when it fully converts. So folks would only have to move once into that facility. And again, I think that would help with the wind down and some client stability moving forward. Still no luck on finding a specific space for special populations out of the mass care exit planks. We have looked for additional buildings and we just haven't identified anything that's available. That said, I think that given that HUD is in town and thinks that independent housing opportunities exist, really should be prioritizing and having that conversation, because we can't seem to find a building to purchase. And then the treatment side, I believe that's the last plank. Salvation Army is moving ahead still with turning back on their facility at 48th Street. We have asked to bring into the facilitation conversation bigger issues around treatment and how enough beds can be brought online, since there's no intention to bring the Golden Lion online as a treatment center. The mayor's office and the assembly members, Felix Rivera and John Muddleton, issued a statement last night that basically said that the closure of mass care is firm, and that the sockeye, of course, would be closing on 3/31, and that is very firm. We know the other ones will be closing, but that is what they said, and that the efforts for housing are underway. That is pretty much everything that has happened in facilitation. We continue to meet weekly for about 2 hours per meeting, and the coalition continues to take the plan and work its implementation. We just are now backstopped by this HUD TA, which I think is going to be very helpful. As I mentioned, HUD TA has been in that room. And I think that's really great to keep the focus on what can be done, that it seems to be possible, or the goal set to house everyone. There doesn't seem to be a lot of appetite by HUD around standing up a navigation center. I think that is the update. Are there questions?
I
Sure,
have one. Oh, go ahead.
I was just curious, for the people being displaced and the people who are currently on the streets that are going back to tents, has any thought been done around those folks?
So do you mean displaced by the closure of a facility?
Both, yeah.
So right now we're working to move everyone who is in a facility slated for closure to somewhere else, hopefully a housing opportunity, by time at that, like literally by time at that space that isn't going to then be mass care, to unwind it from mass care, but stand it up as something else, perhaps transitional housing, like at the Alex, or there is a small amount of space at the Aviator, and the Sullivan is not full. That said, that is not the route we're trying to avoid that route in all instances. And in terms of those who are currently unsheltered, the Sullivan would be the space right now. And I think we have to have a real conversation about, if the navigation center is not stood up, and if there is not a shelter available, like Brother Francis shelter, we don't have its next plan, then what happens? We haven't had that conversation yet.
Right, and specifically around abatement is my curiosity. And if we're going to abate to jails, because that's real quick going to be the option.
Well, that's not legal. So if you hear that happening, you let me know. But
Thank you.
no.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Roger.
Thanks, Roger. Sid?
No, well, first of all, I don't know how you can wear two hats and not go absolutely crazy at the present time, Meg. It's just mind-boggling to me. Why do you think HUD has no interest in a navigation center? I mean, that's such a pivotal component, it would feel like to me.
HUD is interested in housing. HUD makes investments in housing. If you look at where HUD funding goes, it is pretty much housing. I mean, if you think about the emergency solutions grant, which can be used for shelter, it's such a minimal proportion of the HUD funding provided. So HUD is housing focused. Now, I'm not saying that they're criticizing the fact that we're working on a navigation center, but in terms of bringing resources to bear on our mass care exit, that is not the focus. The focus is housing.
Meg, on that same note, I just have a quick question, and probably should have asked this at the first session. Can you give us a quick update on the outreach work and recognizing that there isn't a lot of capacity in the shelter system right now? So as these non-congregate facilities are starting to ramp down, is there any plan for the camp abatement to stop? Has it been happening? What's been the update on that?
Yeah, so camp abatements has still been happening. We get the notice when they're going to post an abatement, and we go out with our outreach teams and we coordinate that. I think that is a really good question, and one that has not been addressed by the municipality in terms of, as we take mass care assets offline and capacity offline, and no new capacity is brought online yet, how does that affect abatement? I think that's a perfect question for us to refer to the Committee on Housing and Homelessness to fully take up. I know Mr. Rivera has been working to get them to give him a written abatement policy, the elusive written abatement policy no one can get their hands on. So this, I think, would be a great opportunity for them to provide clarity through 30 June at a minimum.
Sorry, I muted myself. Would that be something that would be helpful for those of us here in this meeting and our friends to write letters to the administration, like sending emails and asking for that to happen? Or should we run that through the Housing and Homelessness Committee?
I would say that the dual track never hurts. I would just make sure that you copy the committee chair on that so that he's aware of that effort going forward. I will also ask if that issue can be put on the facilitation table. We don't often talk about camp abatement and facilitation, but it seems like it's going to become a very acute issue. And I will ask the facilitators to add that to the agenda, if not this coming Wednesday, the following.
And then this might have been in your words discussion. Do you have a breakdown on the non-congregate facilities? Like how many are currently at each one? The dashboard has 381 in non-congregate. Do you have that breakdown?
I do. My computer died, and so I switched computers to my daughter's.
That's okay.
But I can give you ballparks off the top of my head. So
Okay.
the Aviator is about 225. The Alex is between 110 and 120. We heard from Lisa Sauter that there's 23 at the guest house. And I know there are 6 quarantine and isolation individuals at the guest house. So that would make 29. However, they're there for different reasons. So I don't tend to bring those numbers together. The sockeye is down to a handful. And I know that Taria in our office is like fully got that in hand and is working those folks into housing opportunities. So I think that was all of them.
Rough
Yes.
math, that puts it at about 20 at the sockeye. Sound about right?
Yeah, and a large number of them, my understanding is their families are going to move into a family program that had capacity. Again, that's why we're really trying to give us more lead time, particularly on the wind down of this Alex. If we can convert that into a transitional housing program using a different fund source, that's really what this comes down to in this moment. There is not mass care funding for anything other than the Aviator and the Sullivan starting April 1st.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess, and that was just where it was coming from. I keep an eye on that dashboard, and I know that the current availability at the Sullivan is, well, as of yesterday, 121. And non-congregate availability was 26, which I'm assuming is probably mostly the Aviator. So just doing some math, as I'm sure everybody is doing in their head.
And that's good to raise, because we did confirm that yesterday as well at the facilitation is that the contract for the Sullivan is now up to the 500, the 510 level, and they plan to continue to utilize that capacity through wind down. And the other burning question I have is, will there become a point where there will be no new admission into the Sullivan? And I don't have an answer on that yet, but the question's been asked.
Do you happen to know, or does anyone else on the meeting know, if the Sullivan could accommodate a surge all the way up to 510 if it happened in such a short period of time? Because I know they've struggled with supplies and actually having space for 510.
So according to the health department, the answer is yes. I think I have some real questions around, do they have enough functional cots for 510? And again, the spacing and safety issues would really have to be addressed from the outset, but they have told, my understanding is they've told the provider up to 510.
Okay. Yeah, if there's anything, I know we had a really good discussion last month with Cesar. So if there is something and they can anticipate a need that we could help out with, that would. It's a lot easier to do it even just a week in advance than the day before.
Yes, for sure. For some reason, we can't figure out an interim plan on the Alex. I will send up the help flag for sure. Okay.
And I just want to echo the thank you to all of the staff. I know that Taria and Dakota were at the sockeye all day yesterday, well into the evening, and they are doing everything they can to make sure everybody gets transitioned.
Yes, huge kudos to the coalition staff. They're all very optimistic and energetic about this. We'll try to keep it up. As we keep working through it, we'll try to keep the energy up, but you might see one of us take a day off.
How dare you? Anyone else with any questions or comments on either of the staff reports? All right, we will go ahead and move to the next agenda item, which is questions from the audience. We didn't have anyone pre-register for any public comment or with any specific questions. So opening it up to anyone who might have anything they'd like to unmute and share. All right. Next would be any good news or community events. I know that Dave had something he wanted to share about the pandemic EBT program.
Yeah, thanks, Jessica. So I think many people have heard that the pandemic EBT is coming out soon, and that is a program that was for students who were eligible for free lunch in the school district last year, kind of all across the state, people are eligible. And for Anchorage students, if you were eligible for free lunch last year, you will receive, secondary students, middle and high school kids will receive roughly $1,800 in food stamp assistance, and elementary students will receive about $1,200. And Jenny from the food bank said that those are starting to go out next week, and they will go to many deserving families, which is great. But for several schools that the whole school is a free lunch school, there'll be many families that get them that do not necessarily need them, like East High and Bartlett. So everybody on that side of town, if they have a high school student, they'll be getting $1,800 regardless of income level. They can only be used for food. So we'd like to start a little bit of a kind of a campaign so that families that get those that don't need them can go out and purchase food with the card and then donate it to places like Beans, Catholic Social Services, the food bank, anywhere in town. So I think there's a lot of families going to get them and just wonder, what should I do with this? And they can't transfer the card specifically to someone else, but they can purchase food and then donate it to an organization. So hopefully we'll see that happening in the next little bit. And as Jenny said, it looks like next week cards are going to be cut for Anchorage students, which is great. We've been waiting for months and months and months for this. Thanks. And if anybody has any questions, you can email me. I'll put my email in the chat. And yeah, thanks for the time, Jessica.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So I wish I could be doing this quicker, but this is Allison in light of beds closing and changing. I am excited to say that in June, we'll be doing the groundbreaking on 43 micro units for young people 18 to 24, along with opening up a vocational training center. And that's through a lot of partnerships, and our strongest partner is Cook Inlet Housing on both of the housing units. So we're working as fast as we can to bring on those spaces. And I do know that our navigator teams have been working with DREA, going to adult mass, helping young people as much as we can in rapid rehousing. And we have quite a few numbers that are being housed. So working as much as we can on it. So it's good news.
That's great news. That's super exciting.
And I'm almost afraid to say this good news until the ink is dry, but we're supposed to be closing on our building here at the end of this month. I think signing is happening tomorrow. So we'll have a space to house 5 young people plus a common area. And we're going to work with VOA on some bridging for young people that are waiting to get into PSH units.
That is awesome. That's so exciting. All right, advocacy opportunities. Some of the opportunities you have coming up this upcoming month to be able to provide education or advocacy to our partners. The Housing, Homelessness, and Neighborhood Development, otherwise known as the HAND Commission, meets monthly on the first Wednesday of the month from 4 to 5:30 p.m. So the next meeting of that commission is April 6th. April 12th is the next regular assembly meeting. That is from 5 to 11 p.m. At the LUSAC Library, and also hosted via YouTube. The Assembly Committee on Housing and Homelessness meets monthly on the third Wednesday of every month from 11 to 12. So the next one up for that is April 20th, and that is broadcast via a conference call line, and then also published out on the Assembly or the administration YouTube page. And then there's the second regular Assembly meeting of the month on April 26th. And our next meeting next month is April 28th from 4 to 5 p.m. If you have any ideas or suggestions for presentations, you can definitely email us. And as always, it is broadcast via Zoom and also recorded and available on the ACH website. If you miss a meeting and want to go back and take a look at what we discussed. Okay. We're going to wrap things up a little bit early today. I want to end with thanking everyone again. Thank you for the work that you do. Thank you for the services that you provide. Thank you for being there. Thank you for being here. And again, there was a doodle poll posted in the chat for a meeting on Monday with the HUD TA group to be able to talk about what is going on in Anchorage right now and how we as providers can come together and be a part of that process. If you're looking for volunteer opportunities, you can go to BeTheChange907.org and access opportunities that other providers have put forward for volunteers to participate in. Oh, and Julia posted a link in the chat for an upcoming event this year. There is a save the date for the second Rural Conference on Youth Homelessness. That will be Tuesday, April 12th and Wednesday, April 13th. So you can click on her link and go to their website and take a look at that conference. That looks exciting.
Jessica, can I just make one final plug?
Yeah.
If people hear anything, it doesn't sound right, please call. I'm going to put my number in the chat, text, because I'm in a lot of meetings, but I want to know as soon as possible. We're really trying to chase down a lot of information to make sure we can keep the universe of information as accurate as possible. And it just seems to be a time in which there's a lot of information floating about.
Thank you for that. And if you haven't already signed up for it, the Coalition Weekly Digest that is sent out via email is also a really good resource for some of these conversations and contexts as well. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Have a great evening and rest of your week. I look forward to seeing everybody on Monday.
Thank you.
Thank you.